Before we start, there are two things I would like to say. So please scan the QR code right now, or if you don't have your phone with you, you can go to slido.com and put the code inside. With that, you can answer our poll, because we have a poll question for you all. But also you can ask questions to our guest today, which is a very, very interesting topic, which I will show in a second. It's from engineer to CTO to CPO, embracing complexity and growing your career with Mario. He is a CPO at Hypegraph. He will introduce himself in a second. But before he does, I would like to introduce myself first. My name is Dennis Doan. I am Senior Product Management Consultant at Product People for the past 2 years. And I have worked in different industries from B2C to B2B, have seen various industries, worked also closely with CTOs and CPOs. So I'm very excited to hear Mario's talk in a few minutes. But first, we want to get to know you because we want to know more about our audience. So we have a question for you all, which is, what is your biggest challenge in transitioning from IC to leadership? Is it A, letting go of hands-on technical work? It's B, developing strategic thinking and vision? C, managing and influencing people? Or D, navigating organizational politics and culture? Obviously, maybe not all of you have transitioned into leadership positions. If that's the case, then think about what you think could be the biggest challenge. This would be also quite interesting to see. We will share the poll results after Mario's talk and see who answered what. Again, please scan the code or use the slido.com. One last thing about us at Product People before I give the microphone to Mario is, for the ones that don't know who Product People is and why I am actually talking. So we are doing two main things. The first, how we make money. So we are an interim product management, product ops, or transformation consultancy. So basically, we have in-house staff like me who are jumping into other companies if they need help. So for example, you need a PM because the PM that you right now have is going on parental leave or on sabbatical, or hiring takes too long. So you need to bridge the gap. We can come in and help you out during that time. But we can also do product transformation. We can streamline product operations, etc. But we also give back to our community. This is free of charge. So we are organizing a lot of events all over Europe. But we also started to organize some events outside of Europe this year. And we are doing talks such as this one, where we educate you and invite guests to upskill you. That was for now from me. I will hand over now to Mario. He will talk about how it is to grow your career in the tech industry. Mario, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. And actually, Dennis, you said I will introduce myself, but actually I think I won't do that, because that's actually part of my story, because that will explain, how I played in various steps of my career, what I learned from those, all of that. So actually, that's why maybe in the end, actually I didn't prepare a slide for that, but if there are still open questions, happy to answer anything like that about me and what I'm working on and all of that, but not now. Good. So can we share? Yes, I see my slide being shared here. So I want to talk today very quickly about, say, some lessons, the magic number 7. 7 lessons of, scaling, particularly for me, for myself, for my career. Very clearly, let me give you a confession. I don't think there is a silver bullet. At least I've never found it. Maybe otherwise I would be somewhere else today. I don't know. And also, I probably what I will be talking today is not the ultimate guide to career growth or whatever. I mean, honestly, whenever I hear that, whenever I read that, people have lost me already. There is no such thing as the ultimate thing. Instead, I will present, what I have done in the past, 25 years. So what I have done in 5 different B2B products across different industries, from compliance, knowledge management, MarTech, content management, very, very large variety, and how I've taken different roles in this industry and then grew from lead developer, lead engineer, growing the ranks, management, CTO, and then later product leader. So this is what I will be talking about. Again, hopefully there's something that the audience can learn about from, because at least some things I see as repeating patterns. And for example, when I'm hiring a person or I'm thinking about promoting somebody, I mean, for example, say I want to promote some of my team to head of product, getting into this leadership position, then definitely I see these aspects recurring. So with that, I would say let's jump in, and I hope I can control my slides here. Yes, that works. So very early in my career, and you see that young little Mario over there, I started as a lead engineer at a company called Empolis. It was actually a kind of, startup very early, eager to grow. It was a very technical company, but in this typical startup atmosphere. Also, as very common in these startup environments, of course, there was no laid out plan, no laid out path in terms of leadership development, career development, who's responsible for that, for what. It's more like what you usually do in these startup environments. It's a big team. Everybody does everything, whatever is relevant here. Specifically, I didn't have, a formal title or mandate to go beyond my immediate tasks. And yet, despite all of that, whenever I saw these potential misalignments or gaps or things that need to be addressed, which you will see a lot, the more you are in a startup environment, probably the more. And all these gaps, the more I noticed these, the more I also stepped in and I basically took action. So even when I just started in these early leadership roles, kind of lead engineer, no formal managerial responsibility yet, I would, for example, step in, whenever there was going something wrong, whenever timelines got derailed, whenever there is a specific customer need, or when there are cross-team efforts, for example. So maybe even if something's wrong outside my team, then how can I would step up and get involved there. And not because somebody told me so, not because the CEO asked me to, but because, I simply saw the need. And that also became a matter later on. So you can imagine you don't become a CTO immediately. There are some intermediate steps, from a lead engineer, you become a team lead and then a manager and then a senior manager, and then you grow a bigger team. So even then, always these things happen. So when things are, say, adjacent to my area of responsibility. So the key learning that I actually saw there and had there is this kind of be a leader before you have the formal accountability, before you have the formal role, or as I would put it, do the job before you have the title. Because that will actually help very much accelerate your career. It will help also your boss when they want to promote you to establish the trust in you, because they can see already that you can actually do the job. It's not a bet, it's not a big bet if they promote you. Even today I do that now and then when I do that with some of my team members. You can just put yourself in the shoes of your boss for a moment. Say, just in case they promote you, you're an exceptional IC, and now you become get into your first leadership position, and maybe that doesn't work out so well. Maybe there are some issues. Then what would you do? Well, in fact, your boss lost two people, namely the very good exceptional IC, and also they kind of won a bad manager in that sense. So it's a kind of lost in two ways, and it's something that you could prevent if you can already show the ability to execute, if you don't wait for the title, if you don't wait for permission. Of course, there are limits to that. I mean, you cannot have a performance review with another team member until you're their formal boss. But beyond that, when it comes to projects, when it comes to specific tasks, when it comes to arranging, improving collaboration between teams, that is what I would highly recommend. So be the leader you want to become before you actually have the title. That's my number one learning here. And that helped me a lot in growing. And even before I became CTO, I recall that I actually did have a job, namely to certify the entire company according to ISO 27000 back then. And even back then, I thought, hey, you know what? That's a CTO job. Why would I do that? But in hindsight, that was exactly that kind of, I don't know. In Germany, we have this term Gesellenstück, so the kind of proof, the final proof that you can actually do the job. So that's number one. Number two is I then was a CTO at Empolis. And yes, Empolis had, I think at that point in time, 350-ish employees. So I was leading about 100 in my engineering team. But still, we were part of a much bigger corporation, namely Bertelsmann. And Bertelsmann at that time was an already multi-billion euro revenue company. I mean, also not just tech. I mean, RTL actually, TV was one of the biggest, at least revenue-wise, biggest area. So you were a small, we were a small cogwheel in that whole gearbox essentially. But by the time the company became part of the Bertelsmann portfolio, and I also became CTO, so all of a sudden had that exposure to Bertelsmann management. Of course, that made a big difference. Yeah. So I was still in charge of all the technical aspects, still in charge of of my CTO role inside Empolis. But beyond that, I also had to understand different things. So for example, there is a major shift in terms of thinking business. All of a sudden, I had to understand, by the way, they're talking about profits and EBITDA and budgets and all of that. So I needed to learn also that corporate language, which probably if you're in a smaller company and technical leader, you would care less about. But the moment you're a part of such a big framework or such a big corporation, such a big environment, that becomes super important. And also, likewise, what helped me a lot, and this is where I would have my second learning, is what helped me a lot that, on the other hand, that provided a lot of opportunities, because all of a sudden there were opportunities to network with peers, for example, in a much broader sense. So all of a sudden I was a member, and Empolis was a member of I don't know how many employees we had at that point in time. Again, multi-billion euro in revenues. So there was a big opportunity. Also very, as opposed to the early startup phase, very well-structured career programs, leadership programs, even step-by-step getting into these advanced leadership programs, step-by-step programs, step-by-step trainings, and all of that, to the extent that, for example, I participated in a kind of mini MBA at Handelshochschule Leipzig. I still recall that. There was a couple of weeks that I spent over there, did this kind of mini MBA, and that was basically, that is just unimaginable if you're still in a startup environment. So my key recommendation is here, this kind of structure that you have in this environment, don't consider it as a cage, but rather consider it as a ladder. So you just have to choose how to climb it, and when to climb it. So use this structure to grow, even when it looks a little bit frightening and non-startup like, or not like a fit according to your normal business and normal daily operations. After that, so that was number two. Number three is I then stepped out and then later came back to Empolis. Now, however, in a completely different role. And that is, even before, when I was CTO, I already enjoyed working with customers and doing workshops, analyzing their needs, strategy stuff, all of that. So I would say maybe I was already doing product management without being aware of it. And now when I came back, actually, I consciously and deliberately decided I want to be the product leader, no longer the tech leader. Yes, I know I had these formerly strong tech skills, probably not so much anymore today, but back then, also based on my education. But with that background, all of a sudden, I had to decide differently. And that transition really was very important. It was not just a job title or different job description, but all of a sudden, I made sure that everything that we as product people, I'm even using the name here of our hosts, that we love so much, that we encourage so much, be it about discovery, be it about customer involvement, be it, voice of customer, all of that, all of a sudden that became the number one priority. It became the thing that was sitting in the driver's seat, and no longer an afterthought like, hey, you know what? Yeah, we decided for this and this, and now let's have a PO just work on the final specification of it. So it was really a 180-degree turn of organizing it differently. And that is really also a very conscious decision, where I would say that is true for both when you change from engineering to product, but it's also true when you change from an IC role to a managerial role, that you have to do these, what maybe we could call it gut feeling or instinct or whatever. You have to make these conscious decisions and very deliberate. So you really have to say, okay, what is my strategy? Why am I doing that? What kind of outcomes do I expect from that? So that you can come up with these conscious leadership and change the way of working in the particular organization that you're joining. Particularly when you're joining in such a leadership role, there's probably a gap. There's probably there's a reason why they hire such a person. We will speak about that also in the coming stations here. There's a reason why they're hiring for that, but definitely you have to make that very, very conscious about hypothesis and metrics and assumptions and validating these assumptions. Everything. Basically, do the product management craft, but do it in a conscious manner. And make this very, very explicit. Good. So after Empolis, then I decided to go to a completely different company, different domain, MarTech domain. And honestly, that situation was slightly different. So I inherited a team of product managers and designers over there. Very well, very powerful team, very capable team. It looked great, but after a while, reality kicked in, if you want to call it that way. So all of a sudden, it became clear that actually some kind of strategy was missing there. It was mainly missing because we had this kind of hippo. We hopefully all know this term, this hippo type founder. So the CEO being the founder, knowing it all best, whatever you do, you can never ever come up with the right thing. Even if you set up a right program, even if you set up the discovery that I was just talking about, even when you do a customer discovery, you bring back your results. If that hippo wouldn't like your results, they would just blame you in the sense of, hey, you asked the questions in the wrong way, or you asked the wrong people, or whatever. So it's no matter what you did, it was more like, if it didn't fit to what he was thinking, then there was always some argument. And of course, I could have fought this. I could have, argued. I could have tried to play that game or just follow the person, which is not me. I couldn't stand that. But instead, I actually changed the game. And that's also something that I would highly encourage. That's actually my lesson number 4. So always bring in the customer in that sense. So actually what I did then is I really formalized, I even strengthened customer discovery. I formalized customer discovery. I implemented things like formal, regular cadence customer advisory boards. So in the sense of, hey, if I cannot convince the customer, cannot convince the CEO, let customers do it. Let them speak. And then hopefully he will listen, and hopefully he will hear. And specifically, Market Logic specifically was serving really big brands like, I don't know, Unilever, Procter & Gamble, Coca-Cola, Nestle, you name it. And if some senior person from those company comes in, the CEO better listens. That has a certain weight, to the CEO. So actually, the key lesson here is let customers speak, change the game, kind of, I never did that, but sometimes I'm saying that. Probably it's somebody who does it, who does the sports probably would blame me. It's totally wrong. So to me, in my head, it's always kind of jiu-jitsu style. Yeah, if there's somebody stronger, you just move it and keep the movement of your enemy to actually swing them around or whatever, and use the forces to actually turn your weakness into a strength. And that's actually what I did here. So it's not you as the IC person or even the product leader fighting the CEO. Is get the back of customers essentially. That helped a lot. Yeah, we moved a lot there. As I said, we established this customer advisory board, and that was very, very helpful, and then also turned the whole way of working. Actually, I would even say, I don't have the exact numbers in my head, but in terms of head count, customer discovery, the whole was even the area that I strengthened the most. I also hired a few product managers and even more so designers, but discover, really educated user discovery, customer discovery people. That were the area where I hired the most people in relation to the others. Good. And then step number 5, I jumped into a completely different role, again, different industry. I became chief product officer at Quantic, so an area highly regulated space, occupational safety, compliance, ESG, all of that. I used to say we make sure that blue collar workers come home safe in the evening. These kind of people who work as roofers or in a steel plant or in other dangerous environments, and when really things can go terribly wrong. Yeah, it's not like when you and we have an accident. Oh, I poured my cup of coffee, probably that's the one, and maybe my MacBook got destroyed. Okay, that's it. But when you're in these industries, you see dead people essentially, yeah, and even several dead people. So it really gets disastrous. That was our space. And that situation, again, was totally different to Market Logic. So I did not inherit a team. Instead, I really had to hire from scratch. There was no product function at all. Not even somebody pretending to be a product manager, not a research person. And as usually in these engineering-driven environments, design was an afterthought. So design was this kind of, hey, we shipped this feature, can you put some color coding on it? Yeah, that was the kind of thinking about design. And don't get me wrong, the company was doing very well. They had just achieved, multi-million revenue. They had a post-Series B. But as I would say it, hey, well done so far, but time to grow up. Essentially, that was the situation. So what I did then, because I didn't have anybody in my team and I was hired, I was the first product person as the CPO, but intentionally, also founders gave me a huge trust in that. So I hired very carefully and intentionally. Of course, very natural. The first hire was internally. So first of all, I hired some consultants into the product team because they knew the product, they knew the customers, they knew how to speak to customers, all of that. They didn't know about product management, but the deal was more or less, hey, I tell you about product management and you tell me about our domain, and then jointly we built that product function. And then later, I think it was even more important because I focused a lot on diversity. So yeah, there were some processes that are also implemented, but I would say trust came always first, and I always needed to trust the right people, and for that trust, I needed that diversity. To give you one example, or two examples actually, because at one point in time, I desperately needed somebody who really knew that industry, who had their hands dirty in these heavy duty, high risk industry. So I managed to hire a lady who had been a safety manager at an oil rig in the middle of the ocean. So, when they say we need safety, this is real now. Yeah. When you're in this harsh environments. And of course, that lady didn't know anything about product management. So we had to train her, we had to onboard her, we had to tell her. And likewise, a bit later, actually a few months later, I balanced that and I hired and educated. By the way, was another lady here for whatever not a coincidence. I always felt like ladies outperformed the men in the interviews. Sorry for that. So later I hired another person who had been a B2B product manager, so brought all that product skill and product craft, but was new to our domain. So needed to learn about our domain. So you can already imagine, how this is like a puzzle, like a piece of puzzle where you needed all the different pieces and fit them together, so that in the end it's exactly that diversity and that brings all the creativity and also the insights and the experience. And for example, that safety manager who had been working at the oil rig could always step in and explain something about the procedures over there, whereas the product experienced product managers could explain how to write a product requirements document, or how to write a specifications and how to do discovery and all of that. So that's number 5. Particularly when you're a leader already, imagine or think about how you can construct your team. Think about diversity, because I'm a strong believer diversity always brings better results. Good. And where I am right now is at HighGraph. I am actually no longer anymore. Here right now, I am the CPO. So I joined HighGraph about 1.5 years ago. I consider myself the dinosaur in the team. And when I say that, I mean in relation to my team, the product team, designers, researchers, but also in terms of leadership. I mean, even my CEO is, typical, not first-time founder. He has been working for another company before, but still, it's still I could be his father already. So that's why I always consider my kind of a dinosaur. And the key thing here is, of course, you have to be in a position when you are more and more senior, you have to be able to afford it. But the key statement here is, when you're doing this, you have to be very careful. And when you're joining such a company, you have to be very careful also in terms of, is that the right company for me? Or even, particularly if you're joining as a leader, I would say, is that the right CEO for me? Is that the CEO who wants to work with me? Is that the CEO who wants to listen to me? So basically, I put it like, interview your CEO. I mean, maybe you don't interview them, but you get the picture. So actually, the actual interview or get to know process should really be in both directions. The more senior you are, the more that matters. So I can give you an anecdote from that. So even when we were when we had this kind of early conversations, I remember the CEO screen sharing his roadmap with me. And guess what it was? It was a Gantt chart of wishful thinking of features. And I immediately told him, you know what? Either you're kidding and this is just wishful thinking, will never become reality, or if you truly believe in that, call me when you're done. Maybe I can help you then. But with that roadmap, I won't be able to help you. If you really believe in that roadmap, that doesn't make any sense. And there are a lot of flaws in that, like this Gantt chart. And we all know that, product work is difficult. You never can know exactly, when it will be ready. All of that also was very feature and tech driven and not, value driven from customers. I mean, everything that we as experienced product managers, we know how to do better. So the key thing is here, it's not just the CEO or the leadership team hiring you, but it's also you hiring, you selecting that product person, that leadership team as well. So basically, do they want to listen to you? And that brings me to that's number 6. So of course you have to be able to afford it, and you have to be in a position where you have that strength and can convince them. That brings me to my final statement. Oops, no, the slide doesn't go forward anymore. I am now CPTO, so back to the roots, you could say. I'm now also took over 3 months ago the T in my role, so I'm now in charge of both product and engineering. My key thing here is right now that I'm balancing a lot between both roles, engineering priorities, tech priorities. Actually, I can tell you that there are 2 things that really kind of, well, should I say keep me up at night? Maybe not, but keep me busy during the week. Let's put it that way. That is Maybe the more obvious one or more traditional one is, of course, team topology, because I'm always trying to optimize speed and speed of delivery and all of that. So basically, how can we organize our teams so that they are, maximum, that can achieve maximum autonomy and minimize dependency. We'll never have zero dependencies, but minimize the amount of dependencies. And the other, of course, big topic that probably we all heard and have been seeing a lot is AI. And AI is, again, in two areas, and that's a lot of course, how can we, as a product person, how can we bring AI into our products? And we are doing some AI lab work here and doing early prototypes and doing the typical product management work of customer discovery and all of that. But the second aspect is also how can we leverage AI internally, be it for, of course, talking to ChatGPT, but also in vibe coding, in designing, in running campaigns, in documentation, because HighGraph is a very tech-driven product. HighGraph needs a very extensive documentation. So how can we actually be more efficient, more effective? How can we deliver more with less? So essentially deliver more stuff. It's not about firing people, but how can we deliver more stuff? How can we deliver faster using AI? And for that, even though I promised 7 lessons, actually that's my number 1 lesson that is still open, so that is still learning, still building the bridges over there. So obviously I'm very actively working with the team leads here, with the VP engineering. I don't have a learning on that one yet. And with that, I'm handing over to our hosts here. I guess we are looking at the time. I think we should be pretty good.
Yes, we are very good, actually. Yeah. So thank you very much, Mario. We will give everyone again the chance to ask some questions. Hopefully, I will also have the chance to ask some questions. I have also a few. But before we start with the questions, I just want to say again, if you didn't have to choose the time, so to our audience, please, now is the chance to again ask questions here through Slido, or just comment on LinkedIn or wherever you were watching. And while we are collecting your questions, a few more words about product people. So I briefly said that we are there to help you out, but what are the exact use cases? So we have 3 big use cases. The first one is the interim fractional product manager or product leader. As I said before, if you have a high pressing project with a deadline and you don't have a PM or product leader, we can jump in, or somebody goes on sabbatical or parental leave, we can jump in. And it's like on average, it's between like 3 to 9 months or longer. We also help in program management and product operations, so we have also skills there. And last but not least, we can also help you to be more product-led instead of sales-led. So we can help you with shifting the sales and sales departments, or like the whole culture in the company, and also configure your product strategy and team structure. So just to give you also some ideas, we worked with some B2C clients, you see, from big ones like eBay, to like from the mobility sector, FreeNow, to Ecosia, Blinkist. So we have a variety of industry experience in B2C, but also in B2B. So we worked in smaller companies like Utopia, but also in bigger companies. That is it. One last step is about product people stats, because we are very proud of them. And we worked with more than 300 cross-functional teams and with more than 70 plus clients. And as I said previous slide, from small startups like Series A to, Series A is already like a bit not small anymore, but you know what I mean, to like publicly listed companies. We have 42 product leaders and managers in-house. So we are not freelancers. I'm not a freelancer. I'm an employee by product people, and helping you out, or can help you out in different circumstances. And we're also very proud that we have 62% of women in the team. So we have more women than men at product people, and 66% are in leadership. So we are really focusing on diversity of all sorts. So not only like having more women, but also like diversity and nationality, etc. It's very important for us. Here, I also want to show the poll results. So in the beginning, we asked our audience, what's your biggest challenge in transitioning from IC to the leadership? And we have like two front runners. One is developing strategic thinking and vision, and the second one is managing influencing people. This would be actually also quite interesting first question from my side to Mario, actually, for these both things. Like, how did you actually develop strategic thinking, vision? Is it something that you learned while you were stepping the career ladder, or is it something that you learned actually when you were a CTO or CPTO?
I think in that sense, I'm a little bit, or my career might be a little bit special that I really kind of grew up the ranks on the engineering side. Yeah, it's more like developer, lead developer, stepping up, CTO, and then kind of the sidetrack to do product. But regardless, I mean, strategic things, I mean, obviously, particularly when you talk about product strategy, because this is product people here, there are, of course, a lot of these tools and frameworks and canvases and that you can use. But these are just tools. I think the important thing is that you really have to think, you have to discipline yourself to think, say, 2 years, 3 years, whatever your product. I mean, if you're in hardware, maybe a little bit more. If you're in fast moving, if you're in AI, probably you only think 2 weeks ahead. I don't know, because it's so fast moving. But really discipline yourself to think ahead and think, okay, where could we be? What's our strategic competitive advantage? Where could it be? And really focus on that. And then you can still use all these, strategy canvas and templates and whatever they exist to kind of help you facilitate. And, what kind of areas do I still need to consider? That helps. But the first thing is always thinking ahead, basically. That's what I would say.
Okay, great. So we have also kind of like a follow-up question to that, and I think you partially answered it, but I will anyway still repeat it again. So the first question from the audience is, what were the tools and or methods that made a big difference while adapting to each new stage?
Actually, I have one, and I just pulled that out here from my shelf. I have one big favorite one. That is, I hope you can see that. It's value proposition design by Osterwalder and Co. And the thing is, so you have this value proposition canvas in between. But what I like the most is that with this tool, it's pen and paper essentially, if you want to have it. But with this tool, you can really you can use it more in a continuous process. So you start very early which is a bit weird in that tool because it starts on the right with basically your jobs to be done. And then you go step by step and refine it and, talk to customers and learn about pains and gains. And then you think about solution design and think about pain relievers and gain deliveries and all of that. So it's really, it's not a tool that just fits for one particular step in your whole discovery delivery cycle, but you can use it across the board. That is one thing that I like a lot, because honestly, other than that, I mean, I studied math, and there you would, I think it was called isomorphism. So, we have one formula and we have another one. You can just convert one into the other. Hey, if I have this template, I can also translate it to this one. Come on. Yeah. But that's a great advantage of this value proposition design. That's why I like that. The whole book actually I highly recommend it. It's even fun to read.
Okay, awesome. I didn't know about the book, but thank you for actually
saying. I mean, even from the other side, because it says what you can do wrong. And then there's just one funny, basically just flip it around and then you're on the right track again. So it's, it's very nice. It's joyful even to read it.
Awesome.
Delightful. Highly recommended.
I actually have kind of like, kind of the follow-up question to that is like, you said, you showed like the different kind of steps that you went through. And you also said in the beginning that, I'm not quite sure what it was the second, I think it was the second lesson, is that you should do the work before actually going to the next stage. I'm wondering, like, did you have specific moments in your career where you said, I'm actually ready for the next level, I'm actually doing it already? Like, was it like a big project that you managed or something else where you can maybe be more detailed?
I say in hindsight, it's super clear. Back then, I would say I was kind of expecting it, but even though, of course, you never know, and particularly in a startup, whatever you do, there's so many things that can move fast. But it was specifically that that final step to CTO. So I was leading basically half of the engineering team of Empolis. So basically one product area. There was another basically sister area that I was not leading, where I was now and then getting into, but not really leading. And then all of a sudden I got the job by my then CEO, hey, do this. Actually, it was this kind of ISO certification. So it was not even engineering related. It wasn't even product related. And to me, so I was even wondering, I mean, why me? Why should I have to do that? And now I have to talk to even our consulting team and to them. And why me? But I think that's exactly, hey, if you want to be CTO, if you want to be on a C-level, you have to do that. You have to be, connect with everybody else. And if you cannot do that, you're not the right person. So to me, that was exactly, I was kind of, did I consciously, I don't know, it was 2006 or 7, so it's been a while. I think I was hoping, let's put it that way, maybe I was hoping for it to be like this. How sure I was, I don't know.
Okay, understood. And once you reached the top, let's say, right, what you did, did you have some things that you had to unlearn actually as a leader?
That happened earlier. Actually, that happened when I was, so I was a kind of development manager. I think at intermediate, I had some 30 people also in my team, 30 engineers. And that was also, you have to recall, that was, in the early 2000s, there was no constant Wi-Fi. There was no iPhone yet. I had to travel a lot. And that means you're always, 8 hours off, and then you get back and you need to sync. And then actually my team approached me and told me, hey, Mario, you have great ideas, but please hands off the code. Don't touch the code anymore. You're creating chaos every time. You're always, checking in stuff in your, I think it was CVS or Subversion or whatever back then, no GitHub. You're always creating chaos because you're always late, because you're on the train in between, and all of that. So please don't touch code anymore. Basically, that's what I had to unlearn. So the team explicitly told me. And also we had a culture where that was totally open and valid, and they could do it. So basically they asked me, hey, let's pull us to the whiteboard, explain on the whiteboard what you want to have, and then get out. Get your hands off the code, essentially. That's what I had to definitely unlearn. Yes.
Yeah. How did it feel for you? Was it like, were you sad actually, or was it okay? No, actually I'm fine.
No, I don't think no. Yeah. Because I mean, I knew that the team can do better. They are doing it day in and day out. I mean, why would I do it? So, no.
Understood. Another question is, everyone who wants to step up and become a leader, they also have to develop their leadership style. And of course, maybe the first thought that someone has is we all have our managers, right? So I have my manager as well. And then we are thinking, oh, I like this one, but I don't like this. So I will do it differently when I become a manager. But I think this is maybe a perfect world. So my question to you is, how can somebody find their leadership style, and how did you find your leadership style? Yeah.
Well, I can only talk about myself. Maybe
yes,
actually we should ask other people about me. Yeah, but what I'm thinking, I would say two things here. One is, I am very, very action oriented. I'm also very impatient, and I know that. And I tell everybody, there's one thing I cannot do, and that is wait. I can never wait. I mean, I'm willing to talk to anybody, but I'm not willing to wait for anybody. So this action and really doing and kind of walk the talk, you could also say. And the other dimension, and that is what I always bring, because that's the that's not the opposite, the inverse of that. What I bring across to all of my even team members already, even ICs, because I think the IT industry, our domain is specific in the sense of that we all work with very high qualified personnel. Yeah, even, I mean, developers, designers, I mean, they all, have graduated, they have their masters, they're getting well paid. We don't have any, low paid, low wage workers. And that to me means and that's what I make very, very clear. My expectation is this ownership and accountability for their own tasks. Actually, in my very early career, I read a book that was called The Minute Manager and the Monkey. I don't know who of you knows it. In German, it has a very, very weird name, Klammeraffe, which is basically translates to, I think, like the stapler, which is it means the monkey that's holding your shoulder, but in German, the German translation is just misleading. So basically means, okay, if we talk and Dennis, I give you a task, then the monkey moves from my shoulder to your shoulder. And now, Dennis, it's your monkey. You have to feed the monkey. You have to entertain the monkey. It's not my monkey anymore. If you have a problem, come to me. We can talk about it, but it's your monkey. And I think to make that very, very clear, that is also something that I mean, even when I join a new team, I always make that very, very clear. You can make mistakes. I don't care. I mean, if you make mistakes about your monkey and you need to, okay, fine. I mean, if we work, we will make mistakes. I mean, that happens, but it's your monkey and you have to take responsibility and accountability for that monkey. So if I have to hunt you and say, hey, Dennis, how is your monkey doing today? And how is it doing now? And how is it doing? That's not what I'm going to do, because that's not how I can work. So it's really that, it's I mean, to me, it's a prerequisite for autonomy and empowerment and all of that. I mean, or not you personally, but the employee has to be willing to feed their own monkey.
Yeah. I actually like the metaphor. I never heard about the book, but
it's a very small booklet. You can read it when commuting. It's a very probably fast read.
It's a very nice. But I 100% agree. The ownership and to be able to do autonomy, but not micromanaging, is something that I would personally also do. I have two more questions actually. So one question is that the last one is a bit controversial, so I will leave the controversial question at the end, but it's a personal opinion of you. But before I ask this one, I want to ask something else. There's also a lot of people nowadays actually that they don't want to go to the management route. They want to stay in the IC level because they are happy. And I think to know this is also quite a good skill and nice. But did you have such points where you said, I actually wanted to stay IC? Or
me personally, no.
Yes.
Me not. But I had team members where I even asked them, hey, you know what? I think you're doing a good job. I even remember that very early in my career. Hey, you're doing a great job. Do you consider being a team lead? I said, no. I want to do cool stuff. I want to go to the next conference. I want to build the next cool stuff. I don't want to do this performance review with this other guy there. Yeah, not in these words, but you get the picture. So totally. And also later I had it. I mean, for example, I mentioned market logic in between. I really, really had outstanding team members over there who knew the thing and the domain in and out, but frankly, they were not leaders, not in that sense. So they were in their domain, so basically subject matter experts and great and, rock stars, but not in the sense of building a team, of building a structure, leading a team. So me personally, never. I always wanted to do this. But I've seen that in my teams. And then I think your job as a leader is to enable that. So how can you build a career path that allows them? I mean, they should earn the same money. I mean, when I'm a senior developer, for example, we have that at HighGraph. You're a senior engineer and you can become a staff engineer or a manager, team lead, and salary-wise, that's the same. Yeah, there's no difference in that sense.
I actually like it because I do believe, of course, it's just my observation that a lot of companies are only focused on like a management track. So, but I think it would be it's nice to hear that you, as a leader, also focus on both tracks. That's really nice. I have one last question, and I said it's a bit controversial, but it's also on your personal opinion.
Okay, so maybe my Wi-Fi drops off now. Wait, I can't hear you.
Maybe it's not controversial. Maybe it's only controversial for me. Who knows? It's just a personal opinion. But one thing that I witnessed, as a person, Dennis, is that more companies are hiring CPTOs instead of only hiring CTOs and CPOs. And do you think this is kind of like the new trend where actually it will be like one role only, or will it be more likely dependent on company structure and other things?
I also agree in the sense of I see this trend. I am the CPTO now. And also I see that, I'm also doing some business angel investments and advisory, and I see this in some other companies as well. So particularly these later stage startups, early stage scale-ups, and so on. And maybe let me explain. So let me first answer that question and then give an explanation. I mean, as always, it depends, but I can clearly see situations where a combined CPTO role is an advantage for the company. And the main reason I see is, honestly, for the CTO role, so the chief technology officer, I think that is, when you think of a startup that is being founded, that is probably the role that changes the most when the company grows. Yeah. In the beginning, you are 3 people, small team, you're founding, you're the CTO, which means you're the number 1 hacker. Yeah, you're coding. You grow a bit bigger, you're still growing with your team and building and engineering. And suddenly you're post-Series B, you're meeting with the advisory board and they talk business to you and want to talk about, I don't know, financials, budgets and all that. You ask yourself, what the heck are they talking about? And whenever you bring some tech stuff, they don't want to hear or they don't understand. Yeah, it's like an alien like that. And I think that's really, I mean, there are people who, I also met several people who consciously, again, deliberately, remember my lesson, I made it for the move from CTO to CPO. But I also met people who deliberately and consciously selected that role. Yes, I want to be there and I want to talk business and I want to hear that. But others would say, and for example, that's a situation that we have at HighGraph. Our co-founding CTO is still on board, but now has a different role. Namely, he says, hey, you know what, with this and the entire management meeting, including the board, decided and agreed to it. Hey, you know what, with all this AI stuff, we need somebody who is really deep in the weeds of AI, builds cool stuff day in and day out, and is day and night working on these cool things. And that's his role now. He's leading the AI lab here at HighGraph. Whereas I take care of, performance reviews and processes and not the boring stuff, if you want to call it that way. So in that sense, yes, I see that. And I also see a clear argument why, particularly, if the role of the CTO changes and your CTO actually is, or the CTO of the company is more, they are more valuable in another role.
Okay.
Yeah? They shouldn't be busy having 30 performance reviews every quarter. I mean, then honestly, then you don't do anything else or whatever, business numbers or whatever. If that's not what they want to do, then change your structure. Yes, I see that. And it's, I mean, if the argument is you want to save money, then, I mean, sorry, that's the wrong decision. Then that's the wrong one.
Yeah, it's actually one thing. Sometimes a lot of people just cut costs. Let's eliminate.
Yeah, but then it's weird.
Yeah, I agree.
The work doesn't go away. Yeah, the work is still there. And it's different. And of course, it's kind of difficult. Maybe for me, it's also, again, I had been an engineer before. I had been CTO before. So I still, even when I haven't building, well, I had a little bit with AI and Cursor and that kind of stuff. But I still understand the engineer. So I still understand their language. I can challenge them. I can talk to them. Yeah. So maybe that's also special about me. If you are a product leader who, I don't know, grew in design, maybe then it would be a little bit more challenging when all of a sudden you need to talk tech to them and how do we deploy and how do we host and how do we build an architecture and all of that.
Okay. Super insightful. Thank you very much, Mario. I also really like your engaging presentation style. So thanks for being our guest today. We are not completely done yet. We still have 1-2 slides, but before I do, please also reach out to Mario on LinkedIn, of course, connect. Maybe if you didn't have the chance to ask questions, you can, of course, ask Mario directly. Also, if you are just joined, don't be sad because you can watch a recording of this on YouTube or on LinkedIn. And yes, and I want to show you a sneak peek. Okay, so before I show a sneak peek for next week, 2 things I want to say. So we are hiring. So if you want to join product people, please scan the code on, I think it's on your left side. And we also have a newsletter, a monthly one, which is super fun. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so. We also share product stories and insights there. And now a sneak peek for next week. So we will talk about B2B discovery, which is different than B2C. That I kind of say definitely, having experienced both. So we're looking forward for a lot of people from you, and I wish you a nice Tuesday. Thank you very much.
Thank you.